Light on. Oh my gosh. Look at the sludge. This thing's got 12,000 miles. Look at the sludge. That's from running it out of oil. All right, guys. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this Kia, the sludge engine. We have the new engine here. It's new from Kia. It's actually a Reman from Kia. But let me just show you real quick what we got. It's still in the bag. So here it is, and it's pretty complete. It's got a new valve cover on it. I don't want to open it up just yet because we're not putting it in just yet. It's even got an oil filter on it down there. I know it's hard to see. Water pump pulley. But yeah, it's a Reman. So a lot of people have been asking me, say, but how did that thing sludge up so bad? Okay, let me try to explain this in layman's terms in the way that I can understand it, and maybe you can understand it too. So what happens, hold on a second. So what I actually had to do is create a cheat sheet. So if you see me looking over, you know what it is. Because I cannot remember stuff like this to basically rattle it off and tell you, because that's just how my brain works. You know, I know the stuff internally, but to put it into words for me is a little difficult. This is how I am, this is how I work. So if you see me looking over, I'm just looking at a cheat sheet. So what actually happens? Why does the oil turn to sludge? Well, when your engine is running, the engine is made of cast iron or aluminum, and what happens is the cylinder temperature, the cylinder head temperature in the combustion chamber, the piston or whatnot, at idle are a different temperature than when you're accelerating down the highway. Many people don't realize that. You know, they think, okay, my engine's at 220 degrees. Okay, true. The base temperature of that entire engine is 220 degrees. Okay. That's the coolant temperature, because the coolant is absorbing the heat. The cast iron, the aluminum, is absorbing the heat. However, when you're at idle, your engine's only making, say, 5 horsepower. I'm just basing this off, let's say, a 4-cylinder, 2-liter, 2.5-liter, whatever. You're making 5 horsepower at idle. It's to keep your alternator turning. It's to keep your AC compressor running. It's to keep your lights on, stuff like that. You're only making 5 horsepower. So at that point in time, you know, you're only making roughly 350 degrees of temperature in the cylinder, okay? 350 degrees, but why? My gauge is reading 220. Yes, your gauge is reading 220. Because the coolant and the cast iron or the aluminum or whatever is absorbing the temperature and it's dispersing it around, and that's your average temperature now is 220. Now, when you get on the highway, cruising down the road, your horsepower rating goes up, okay? Let's say your vehicle makes 150 horsepower max. So now you nail it to get onto the highway or whatever. So you're making 150 horsepower. Compared to that 5 horsepower, your 150 horsepower makes more heat. So in that instance, you could be making roughly 650, 675 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what the temperature is inside the cylinder. But wait, it's only reading 220 degrees. Yes, because the cast iron or aluminum the temperature gets absorbed into that, which gets transferred into the coolant, which the coolant then dissipates the heat. So that's why you see a temperature gauge move a little bit up and a little bit down, because it's just transferring the heat is all it's doing. When coolant is in a radiator, and a lot of people don't realize this, when coolant is in the radiator and you have a thermostat, what happens is the temperature in the engine increases. So the temperature of the coolant increases, the temperature inside the radiator decreases. Once the temperature inside the engine increases to a certain point, that thermostat opens and you do a big transfer. Hot coolant goes into the radiator, cooler coolant goes into the engine, thermostat closes. So now the cooler coolant that's in the engine gets to heat up. The coolant that's in the radiator gets to cool down. A lot of people don't realize this, but back in the day, people used to pull a thermostat out as like a fix for that. But the problem with that is, yes, it does work to an extent. Eventually, the temperature just keeps climbing. Okay? Eventually, the temperature keeps going up because you don't have that flip back and forth. You don't have that transfer of warm coolant to hot coolant to cool coolant, and vice versa. It doesn't go back and forth. So eventually, your temperature just keeps rising, and it never comes down. So removing the thermostat is a problem. They do make restrictor plates and stuff like that for race cars, but that's another story. So that's one big thing. So now when you have cooler temperatures in the combustion chamber, The rings don't necessarily seal as they should. When they don't necessarily seal as they should, and you have cooler temperatures inside the cylinder because you're at idle, you also have moisture. The air that we breathe has humidity in it. We're in a very high humidity area. The humidity gets burned off inside the engine. So that burning off of the humidity, water, it does not get burned up into the exhaust. Some of that goes past the rings and contaminates the oil. Also, with the cooler piston temperatures, cylinder head temperatures, the fuel doesn't get burned up as completely as it should. So some of that gets past the rings. It's a natural phenomenon. This will happen to any internal combustion engine out there if you leave it at idle. If you ever hear industrial equipment, they don't just sit there at idle. Once they are put into use, like for whatever it is, be it a power washer, a generator, or whatever, you hear the RPMs kick up. If you ever hear a tow truck, when they kick the PTO on, to engage the winch or the hydraulics or whatever, the RPMs kick up because you need the horsepower and you need to keep the temperature at a certain point, okay? A lot of people don't realize that. So all that contamination gets past the rings, okay, gets into the oil. The fuel that gets into the oil, it kills the additives that are in the oil that help stabilize the oil, okay? So eventually you get a breakdown of oil. Now, here's the other thing that a lot of people don't think about. When you're at idle, okay, let's say you, for every 1 hour of idle time, that's equivalent to about 30 miles. So cutting in right now. So I was editing this video and I realized that my math was not mathing. Okay, I was so confident in this video that my math was correct, and when I'm editing it, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. So you'll understand in a second here. So 1 hour is the equivalent of 30 miles. 1 hour is 30 miles. So 30 miles, if you multiply that by 24 hours, that's 720 miles. 720 miles times 365 days in a year is 262,800, okay? 262,800. So in the video, my mileage is a little off. I mean, my math wasn't mathing, it was a little bit off. But I'm going to leave it there so you can see it. Like I said, I'm editing right now. So, but I'll leave it there and you'll understand. So I'm going to insert this right at this point. Okay? Equivalent to about 30 miles. So, if you're basically idling, if you're left idling for 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, okay? That's the equivalent wear and contamination of 600 miles in 1 week. That vehicle, I was told by the people that own it, that it stayed idle 24/7, 365. Think about that for a minute. Do the math. I'll let you do the math, okay? What'd you come up with? That's 219,000 miles done in idle time. 219,000 miles. So, yeah. So if you're wondering why the oil looks like what it does, why it's so badly sludged up, now you know. Now you know. And like I said, I received several messages from different people. Subaru Tech that said they wound up putting 3 engines in a vehicle. Same thing. That was a security vehicle that was just left to idle 24/7, like this Kia was. So I am not blaming Kia one bit. Okay, what security companies do is they look for inexpensive vehicles. Okay, I love my Kia and I don't have any problem with it. I have zero problem, and I have the same engine in my Kia. Yeah, now granted it's 10 years earlier, 12 years earlier. I have no issues with it. It doesn't burn a single lick of oil, okay, because I romp on it. You know, the rings seat every time I drive it, so nothing gets blown by. Get in it, start it, let it go. But like I said, security companies, they don't buy expensive vehicles. They're not going to spend, if they could buy a Kia or a Hyundai or a Nissan or anything like that and save a couple $1,000s, which, think about it for a second, they're going to do that over buying, let's say, a Toyota. Now, I've had people say, oh, but my Toyota doesn't do that. My Toyota, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Let your Toyota idle 24/7 and see what happens. I'm going to challenge somebody. Take your Toyota Corolla, let it idle 24/7, and tell me what happens to it. Okay, let it idle for, a month or two, and tell me what happens. I guarantee you won't do it because you know I'm right. Okay, but anyway, that's what happens. So I hate saying I know I'm right, but it's just the truth is there. Let's just put it that way. It's not that I'm right. I'm just basically explaining to you what actually happens. So I thought that was good to share. I just wanted you to know that. So now that we have the engine, hopefully I'm the one that gets to do it. I want to put diesel fuel in it to basically flush it out. But here's the thing too, if I put diesel in it, like a lot of people said, drain the oil out, put diesel in it, I want to see how well it cleans. I want to see that too, I really do. But then again, I want to see how much sludge is in the pan. But judging by the valve cover, I'm assuming the oil pan's going to be the same. So here's a question for you guys then. Should I do that? Now, this is only if I get to do it. Now, the problem is I'm going to be gone all next week. I've explained to everybody about Mrs. Wrenching's health conditions, and she actually has been accepted into a clinical trial down in Fort Lauderdale at a university hospital down there. So there's a clinical trial going on, and she's in the second round of clinical trials. So we are going to be there for all of next week. So if anybody's down in Fort Lauderdale area, hit me up, message me, whatever, my email's available in my description on the page. So maybe hit me up, maybe we can meet up. I don't know. It just really depends on my schedule during this period of time of next week. Next week is August, it's the third week of August 2026, in case you're seeing this at any other time. But yeah, so I already told Rob I really want to do the job. He said I can, but here's the thing. If the shop runs out of work, why would the vehicle just sit here? So somebody else may wind up doing the job while I'm gone, which means I could never do that flush, which if that's the case, then I'm still going to take it apart. I really want to take it apart. I really want to give it a look over. I want to pull pistons out. I want to look at rings and stuff like that. So, but hopefully I'm the one that gets to do it, but I won't know just yet. So anyway, I just thought I'd explain everything to you, let you know what's going on. Yeah, so in the description below on this video, if you see, I actually now have an Amazon storefront. So instead of me putting individual links to products that I use, I basically have all of those products that I personally use or recommend in my Amazon storefront. So if you could please give it a click, I'd really appreciate it. It does help me out, and I do make a small percentage on it. I don't control the prices. I just show you where to buy the stuff. That's all it is. I don't actually sell the stuff myself. It's just a basically way for you to find what I recommend. All right, guys. That's pretty much it. I know I'm probably rambling. All right, have a great day and keep wrenching. I hope I explained something here.